Welcoming you to the 1887th edition of the Enfield Talking newspaper, Dateline, 10th of January 2013, and Happy New Year. The readers this week are Malcolm, Elizabeth, Audrey and myself, with Dave on the controls. The items that we will be reading come from our local newspapers and are their copyright. Local stories include Chase Farm downgrade is approved, Tesco comes under fire for culling sparrows in the supermarket, New Year's honours swimming instructor is recognised, and first aider praised for long service. A special thank you to Sylvia for all the super Christmas events she organised with her wonderful crew of helpers. Happy New Year, Sylvia, from ETN and all our listeners. We are sorry that we were unable to record the New Year tape due to lack of news in the local papers and problems with reader availability. So this is the first take of 2013. The drop-ins start next week on the 17th of January, a good chance to have a chat with friends or those promoting equipment. As usual, they are held at the Park Avenue Centre at 10:30 till 2:30. And on the 4th of February, Enfield Vision has its evening meeting at 7 p.m. If you are experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 0208 805 6578. She is your listener's representative and will be pleased to help you. And at the end of side 2, please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the cassette into the packet and return it to us as soon as possible in readiness for the next edition. And now Malcolm will read the first item of local news.
Plans to strip Chase Farm Hospital of its accident and emergency and maternity services moved a step closer to reality this week after health chiefs earmarked £115 million for the scheme. NHS London announced on Monday that it had approved the business case for the controversial Barnet, Enfield and Haringey clinical strategy, which would see A&E and maternity services at Chase Farm in the Ridgeway Enfield removed. Instead, patients will be sent to North Middlesex University Hospital in Stirling Way, Edmonton, or Barnet Hospital in Wellhouse Lane, High Barnet. Some patients with minor injuries could be treated at a new urgent care centre at Chase Farm, for which £12 million has been allocated. It will be open for just 12 hours a day. Health campaigners have been highly critical of the plans, which were finally approved by the government in September 2011, after years of opposition from patient groups, councillors, MPs and residents. Maternity and A&E services at Barnet Hospital are to be expanded, and £23 million has been allocated for new wards and 200 extra parking spaces. The North Mid is set to receive the largest chunk of Treasury money. £80 million has been earmarked to refurbish the hospital's 1970s tower block and for the creation of a new women and children's centre. Building work is expected to be completed in the spring of 2014. Aliv Kazimoglu, chairwoman of Enfield Council's Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Panel, said, "This is the beginning of the end for Chase Farm. An urgent care centre is no replacement for an A&E department. What exactly the new centre at Chase Farm will provide must be made very clear to residents, otherwise they will still go to Barnet or North Middlesex, and that will have a knock-on effect on services there." Save Chase Farm campaigner Kate Wilkinson added, "The government is actually closing urgent care centres across the country. There is so much confusion around these, and the system is becoming increasingly fragmented. Surely it makes more sense to put the funding into the GP surgeries in the community in order to improve primary care in the community." Ian Mitchell, Medical Director for Barnet and Chase Farm Hospitals NHS Trust, said, "This is very welcome news. Clinicians have long argued that healthcare in Barnet, Enfield and Haringey needs to be revitalised in order to provide better care to local people. There are currently plans to merge Barnet and Chase Farm Hospitals NHS Trust with the Royal Free in Hampstead.
Conservationists in the borough
say they are appalled after managers at Tesco in Ponders End admitted that the supermarket giant is killing sparrows that are nesting in the store. Calls from concerned customers flooded into campaigners, including the local branch of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, after it was revealed that a pest control agency had been contracted to cull the entire sparrow population in the store. It's believed the firm is using a marksman to shoot the birds. According to the RSPB, house sparrows in London are a red-listed species, meaning they're protected under law because their numbers have been declining so rapidly in recent years. They're protected under law by the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, which has banned culling populations of sparrows in the capital. However, there is a loophole in the law that means that if the sparrows pose a health and hygiene risk to humans, they can be culled if all other, more humane means, such as trying to catch the birds using nets or using sparrowhawks to kill the birds, have been exhausted. But wildlife campaigners and residents maintain that what Tesco is doing could decimate the local sparrow population and stress that there are other solutions which the multinational supermarket chain could try. We're sympathetic to Tesco, who is struggling with what is a hygiene issue, but the preferable option is for the birds to be captured and released elsewhere, said Bob Husband, a Cockfosters resident and group leader for the North West RSPB. If Tesco, for example, puts a feeding station outside the store, then that would lure the birds outside where they could be caught. Then plastic could be put up to stop them re-entering the store. However, Tesco told the advertiser that the problem of the birds nesting in the store had been going on for several months and insisted that it had tried every other means available. A spokesman for the supermarket chain said, "Our goal is to release any birds which have found their way into our stores while ensuring we maintain our high standards of hygiene." In spite of repeated efforts to free the sparrows, including removing windows at the front of the store, using a sparrowhawk and deploying nets, we have been unsuccessful.
A swimming instructor is recognised in the New Year's Honours List. A volunteer sworn to secrecy about receiving an MBE has finally been allowed to tell her friends and family about her accolade. Jackie White, who has volunteered as a swimming instructor for 50 years, received a letter a month ago asking if she would accept the MBE in the New Year's Honours List. The 67-year-old, who volunteers at the Halliwick Penguins Swimming Club, based in Southgate Leisure Centre, was recognised for her services to disability swimming. She said, "About a month before the New Year's Honours List is released, we have to say whether we are going to accept the MBE or not, so it was all kept secret until December the 29th. It was really quite funny because when it came out in the morning, I phoned my children to tell them because I had kept it such a secret. I said, 'We must all go out for breakfast now,' and that was really nice." Mrs. White, who lives in the Ridgeway in Enfield Chase, said her family and friends were very proud to hear of her achievement. The swimming group in Winchmore Hill Road is dedicated to teaching people with disabilities to swim using the Halliwick method, which calls for one-to-one training between swimmer and coach. Despite her feat, the dedicated volunteer remains modest and said there are many other people that deserve to be rewarded for their hard work in the borough. She said, "I'm feeling so excited, but there are all these other people that also do so much, probably more than me. And you think, why should I get it? But I think that is how lots of people feel. I don't quite believe it's all happening." She's yet to receive her medal celebrating her achievement, but is doing some research on the internet about the what the award ceremony will entail.
And a first aider who worked during the Olympic and Paralympic Games has been rewarded with an MBE. Anne Cable, 59, from the Ridgeway in Enfield Chase, signed up to St John Ambulance when she was just 10 years old after being drawn to the first aid charity during a primary school assembly. The district manager has never looked back and has since volunteered at major events, including the wedding of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee last year. She said, "I had a big smile on my face when I found out. I'm really chuffed. But it is a very difficult thing because I am nominated for my work in St John, and I really do feel that this award should be for everybody, all the volunteers in London." To this day, the retired primary school teacher does not know who nominated her for the MBE. She received a letter in November asking if she would be willing to accept the honour and said she was on tenterhooks before it was announced in the New Year's honours list, as she had heard nothing more. Although, she said, it is very difficult to pick the highlights of her 50 years of volunteering, she said the sheer privilege of working at the country's major events was unforgettable.
A politician is demanding answers after the number of police officers in Enfield was slashed by 10% in the past 2 years. Edmonton MP Andy Love said a Freedom of Information request revealed police numbers have been cut from 595 in March 2010 to 534 in April 2012. In the same period, the number of police community support officers, PCSOs, patrolling the borough's streets fell by 42%, from 170 to 99. Mr. Love said Enfield residents should be able to feel safe on their own streets. A visible police and PCSO presence was a good way of achieving that. By cutting these vital frontline staff, we risk seeing an escalation of crime in our area, which is completely unacceptable. In total, Enfield has seen a 17% cut to police officers and PCSOs, a fall from 765 to 632 officers. Enfield's 10% drop in police officer numbers is in line with the London average, which fell from about 20,500 in March 2010 to 18,500 in April last year. The Labour MP added, "David Cameron needs to explain why Boris Johnson has allowed so many frontline police staff to be axed in London, despite promising otherwise, especially at a time of growing concern about gang crime and over a period that included major riots." A spokesman for the mayor said, "Recruitment was put on hold during the Olympics, but unlike many other police forces in the country, the Metropolitan Police is now training new officers and numbers will rise again this year. The balanced budget we have set out allows us to keep police numbers high at around 32,000 over this term, and our reform plans will see even more police officers out on patrol in our neighbourhoods."
All households in Enfield will be able to recycle food waste after council chiefs announced a £2.5 million plan to roll out the service to every property in the borough. The change will mean that all properties, including flats, will be provided with access to food recycling services. Enfield Council received a £2.46 million grant from the government after submitting a bid to the weekly collection support scheme, and the money will be used to improve all of its refuse and recycling services. Local authorities are charged for refuse, which is not recycled, and councillors say that these proposals will save taxpayers money in the long term. Enfield Cabinet Member for the Environment, Chris Bond, said, "It's fantastic news that we're able to expand our food waste service thanks in part to this government grant. We're already saving £1 million a year by increasing our recycling rates and diverting waste away from landfill, therefore paying less in expensive landfill taxes, and we hope to increase our recycling rates and reduce our costs further in the future." Food waste in landfill sites produces methane, a greenhouse gas, which most scientists believe is contributing to global warming. However, the food and garden waste collected from Enfield households for recycling is sent to a plant in Edmonton, where it's turned into compost, some of which is used on the borough's green spaces. The government's weekly collection support scheme has awarded a total of £250 million to 85 councils across the country to maintain a weekly collection and support recycling services. Last year, Enfield Council gave 80,000 households separate wheelie bins for garden and food waste, rubbish for recycling and general refuse. Due to this scheme, the council said that it had seen an increase in recycling rates from 27 to 40%.
This is another article, this time by MP David Burrows, also about the waste plant U-turn. Christmas came a few days early for my constituents living close to Pinkham Way when the North London Waste Authority announced its withdrawal of the planning application for a mechanical biological treatment plant there. At long last, the North London councils, including Enfield, have accepted that plans for MBT facilities only need to be taken forward at Edmonton and not Pinkham Way. This is a great victory for our campaign, which has repeatedly told Enfield Council and the NLWA that the massive site was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I pay tribute to the tireless campaigning of the Pinkham Way Alliance. We can now carry on with the regeneration of the North Circular area without hundreds of lorries transporting the region's waste to Pinkham Way. We only need to hold off on the celebration for clarification about a substitute plan to use Pinkham Way for a delivery, sorting and transfer point for recyclables and other local waste.
More than 50 people were seriously injured in Enfield on Christmas Eve as paramedics responded to emergency calls on one of the busiest nights of the year. The London Ambulance Service reported a 59% increase in call-outs for serious and life-threatening injuries on December the 24th, rocketing from 32 injuries in 2011 to 51 in 2012. Less serious injuries also increased by 25%, with paramedics attending 107 injuries on Christmas Eve compared to 85 on the same day in 2011.
Still standing resolute, it is the last survivor of a different era. But the end is near for a 150-year-old pub due to be demolished to make way for housing. The Old Sergeant in Parsonage Lane, Chase Side, closed its doors for the final time in November after it went into administration and was bought by Enfield Borough Council. 10 derelict 1950s and 1960s housing blocks on the same street have been knocked down over the past few weeks to create space for 24 family homes. Councillor Andrew Stafford, Cabinet Member for Finance and Property, expects the pub to be demolished in the coming days. Contractors employed by the council have until Thursday, January the 31st, to demolish the buildings affected by the development. Councillor Stafford said it had not been confirmed how many homes will be built on the pub site, which will be in addition to those built to replace the housing blocks. He added the council is favouring private rather than social housing on the site after gauging public feeling in the area. He said, "We're desperate for housing and, from what the residents told us, they would favour private development." The Labour councillor said the authority is looking to offer a contract on the site in August in order to start building in the autumn. He hopes the work will be completed by autumn 2014.
Ambitious plans to redevelop Ponders End were given a boost this week after Transport for London agreed to give £200,000 towards the project. The money, which will go towards developing plans to improve transport links and public spaces in the area, is expected to be followed by a further £1.8 million in 2015 to carry out the project. The plans are part of a wider £23 million regeneration scheme being driven by Enfield Council to improve transport, public spaces, shopping areas and housing in Ponders End. According to council chiefs, the TFL money will be used to improve road safety and make it easier for pedestrians and cyclists to get around High Street, as well as improving bus services and waiting areas for passengers. It's hoped that the investment will help to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour in the area. Enfield's Cabinet Member for the Environment, Chris Bond, said the council would develop the plans before they were put out for consultation. The rejuvenation of Ponders End is a major priority for us, and this money will help to improve links across High Street and make it significantly easier for people to get around the area on foot, by bus or on their bikes, he said. Enfield Cabinet Member for Business and Regeneration, Del Goddard, added, We're doing an incredible amount of work to regenerate Ponders End, and this funding will help us develop an effective plan to make the area more accessible and attract businesses and customers to the town centre. We're a pro-business council, and the success of this bid demonstrates we're determined to do everything we can to build and maintain a strong and vibrant town centre where businesses can thrive.
Our children's centre is celebrating after being rated outstanding in its first Ofsted inspection. Cheviot's Children's Centre in Chaseside, which cares for families with disabled children up to the age of 5 years old, was awarded the highest rating in every category during its inspection. Education watchdog Ofsted praised the centre for its effective leadership and management, noting its exceptionally experienced staff with excellent levels of knowledge in supporting the children's multiple and complex needs. The Specialist Children's Centre, set up in 2007, underwent a refurbishment last year. New features include specialist changing areas and toilets, as well as larger playrooms. Centre manager Sue Roberts said, "You can't get better than outstanding staff, parents and children. We appreciate their support." Councillor Ava Orhan, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, said Cheviots is an extraordinary place that values each child, extending them to the limits of their ability through experience and learning.
Traders are concerned for the year ahead after reporting the worst ever Christmas sales period. Bob Work, who owns Studio Shoes in Church Street, said although internet sales were up, sales in the store had been the worst he had seen. Mr. Work, who took over Enfield Town's longest-running shoe shop 7 years ago, believes many people hit the town's shopping centres in the lead-up to Christmas without stopping in smaller shops that were a short way away. He said generally Christmas was dramatically down on last year. It's the worst I've seen it, but I think the footfall was down everywhere. People are finding it very difficult this year. Mr. Work said customers had flocked to larger shoe stores that were able to afford the higher rates in more central locations. However, Enfield Town manager Mark Rudling said many retailers had reported encouraging results in a tough economic climate. He said it highlights the fact customers still want the traditional shopping experience. And he said Enfield Borough Council's decision to introduce 3-hour free parking in Enfield Town every Sunday had been an additional boost for shoppers and traders alike. Pam Batley, who opened Ma Batley's Sweet Emporium and Tea Room in Church Street 6 years ago, said pre-Christmas sales were high, but they had dwindled in the past week. She said it was very good over Christmas, but it's tailed off. People are being very careful with their money, and there's an element of confusion in regards to the free parking and how long it is going to last. Customers walk down to the car park and go into the precinct, do all their shopping and find they are laden with bags and forget to come here.
2 students are enjoying the limelight after achieving the highest grades in their subjects. Simona Angelini, 20, from Palmer's Green, who studies philosophy at Reading University, was recognised for receiving the top mark in her course at the end of her first-year exams. Stefan Andreas, 21, of Bincote Road in Oakwood, scored the highest mark in the first year of his accounting and management course. The hard-working pair, who are in Reading University's top 1% of students, was celebrated with 70 other students during the Chancellor's Awards ceremony at the end of term. Chancellor Sir John Majewski, who presented the awards, said Stefan and Simona are representative of our best students from across the university's broad range of academic disciplines. We're extremely proud of such inspiring individuals. Mr. Andreas said, "I'm honoured to receive this award. The highlight of my year was achieving a first in part 1 of my studies, so it's great to be recognised in this way. I'm very pleased that my hard work paid off."
A mystery figure is on a one-man mission to spruce up a corner of Bowes Park after he was spotted cleaning the streets by grateful residents and business owners. The vigilante street cleaner of Middleton Road, as he has been dubbed by gallery owner Matt Riches, has been seen cleaning up the area since before Christmas, when he started tying balloons to trees in Bowes Park in a bid to brighten the area in time for the festive season. He's definitely brightening the place up, Mr. Riches, who co-owns the Step Cafe Bar and Gallery in Middleton Road, told the advertiser. Bowes Park and Middleton Road do look quite scruffy and unloved with all the boarded-up shops, so it's fantastic for this bloke who is doing this off his own bat and with a smile on his face too. I think a few people got the wrong end of the stick and thought he was rooting through the bins for food at first, so we were all delighted and slightly puzzled when it dawned on us that he was actually just tidying the street. So far, very little is known about the mystery cleaner. Mr. Riches has tried to talk to him in order to thank him for his good efforts, but the determined do-gooder speaks limited English. According to Mr. Riches, all he says is, "Happy New Year. Must keep busy, boss." As well as decorating parks and picking up litter, the one-man cleaning team has rid the street of unwanted and unsightly dumped building materials, and he was last seen meticulously breaking up a 12-foot-long block of abandoned MDF. Mr. Riches is thrilled the area outside his business is looking so clean and tidy, and is keen to extend thanks to the mystery man, or indeed anyone who can shed any light on this real-life womble. I think that is a brilliant story, especially a good story to start the new year with.
Southgate Opera presents HMS Pinafore by Gilbert and Sullivan on Wednesday to Saturday, the 23rd of February. The show takes place at the Willits Theatre in Darks Lane, Potter's Bar. All the evening performances start at 7:30 p.m, but there is also a matinee at 2:30 p.m. If you want to make inquiries about the prices and so forth, ring their box office 01707 645 005. That's 01707 645 005.
We've now reached the end of side 1 of this tape. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over and start side 2.